What's going on, Port fans? Welcome back to another video on my channel, and today we're going to be previewing Port Adelaide's round 21 clash against the Sydney Swans this Saturday afternoon at the Adelaide Oval, 1:40 p.m. It's going to be a big game for the Power, who'll be looking to continue to back up last week's performance against Essendon, while Sydney will be looking to break a 5-game losing streak, in particular last week's poor result against GWS, losing by only the 2 points. It's a big game for Port Adelaide's finals hopes. If they are to win, they will continue to look like the team to take Adelaide's spot in the 8. But it all depends on how Adelaide goes. But that is in itself going to be a very interesting story. Let's have a look at this weekend's game and see exactly how Port Adelaide are going to beat the Swans. As we always do in every preview for every single week, we look at the opposition firsthand to see exactly how they're tracking for this week's game. And Port Adelaide against the Swans haven't been particularly great, having a 20 win to 9 ledger against. So Sydney have won 20 times. Port Adelaide have won only just the 9. But Port Adelaide have the ledger lately. They've won the last 2, both at the SCG, while Sydney have not lost to Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval. So a very interesting concept this weekend indeed. Sydney obviously coming off a loss to GWS by 2 points. They haven't won a game for 5 weeks. It's been probably one of their more disappointing seasons they've had in quite some time, Sydney, and sitting 15th on the ladder, 6 wins and 13 losses. You'd kind of be thinking that going through this mini rebuild transition period at the moment, and they wouldn't be too pleased with how they're sitting. And their performances haven't been that bad, but unfortunately they just haven't been good enough. And for a club like Sydney, they'll be very much looking forward to bounce back and take some sort of credibility to finish off 2019. Some players to watch this week for Sydney in particular. Dane Rampy could make his return from an injury of a bleeding eye, which is not a pleasant injury for sure. But players like Heaney, Lloyd, etc. like that, they're all in fine form. Kennedy, Parker, all their mainstays are all performing. It's just that their second-tier players haven't really lived up to any expectations, and unfortunately, they're not tracking too well. But they'll be looking to bounce back against Port this week. But I think the way Port Adelaide are tracking, it's going to be a very difficult task. As we go into some game notes now, the key statistics to look at, Port Adelaide must win. Simple as that for this week's game. They must win to keep their finals hopes alive. But not only that, to back up a performance like they had against Essendon, it's been the story of the year. They'll play so well one week, and the next week they'll play pretty poorly. Obviously, the week before Essendon, they had 3 losses in a row. They were all pretty competitive in those games, but not to any expectation where we expect them to be as Port fans. So, Sydney, big game. They've got very good players. They're missing a lot of key players, which at the Adelaide Oval, in front of a crowd that's going to be pretty rowdy, pretty excited, and pretty eager to get a win. I think there is a lot of expectation on Port Adelaide, especially going into this game as favourites, which we know we don't treat that too well at all and don't usually win when we're favourites, which is, makes this week all a bit more nervousy, to go into. It's pretty nervous times at Port Adelaide, especially when that is the kind of thing that we really need to bounce back on. So it's something that we've got to look at. It's something that we've got to address. And there's nothing better than a Saturday Arvo game at the Adelaide Oval. Weather looks a bit iffy, bit rainy, so it could play into Sydney's hands. The way they play their contested game could make it for more of a fascinating contest. But we know we do have the balls in the middle to get the job done, so we have to be able to finish that off and utilise our key strengths. One thing Port Adelaide does have is scoring power. We saw that last week at Etihad Stadium. The new look forward line structure that Ken Hinkley brought in with Dixon and Marshall. Laddams is the second ruck with Ryder. It works pretty well, but that's in the dry. And the Swans lack some scoring power that they obviously don't have with Buddy in the side. And they've kicked I think out of 8. They've averaged 70 points the last 2 weeks. And Port Adelaide have only averaged I think it's 90 points. So, their scoring's there, Port, but over the last 6 to 8 weeks, they have not hit the targets they'd be looking at. And I think the Swans don't have enough scoring ability as Port Adelaide do, especially with the likes of Robbie Gray, Connor Rosie, and Todd Marshall, who have been amongst the goals. I think across the board, Port Adelaide have most bases covered in terms of comparing the two teams. We've got a pretty good midfield. We match up really well. Our forward line pretty much it really stretches their defensive lineup, and I think our defense has been solid on any forward line this year. So I think most bases are covered, but The one thing that's holding Port Adelaide back is themselves. And if they can somehow bounce back and get the ability to play a good brand of football and be consistent, that C word, consistent, then no doubt I think they'll beat Sydney and beat them pretty well. I think the day in itself is going to be basically who can win out of the midfield. We know Port Adelaide is a very clearance dominant base side. They are very handy in going inside 50s. Number 1 in the league in contested possessions. We just get the ball out. Number 2 in the league for possessions in general. But I think it will come down to the ruck when Port Adelaide's ruck stocks with Ryder and Laddams taking on the young McLean. He needs a hand, and we know that for Sydney. They haven't got their main ruckman in the side. So I think with them not having Sinclair, and there's another injury player that I can't quite remember, but I think if Port Adelaide can exploit Sydney in that area, be good on the ground, and if it is wet, we get the ability to get it forward and keep it inside 50, then no doubt I think we'll get the job done. Looking at the changes for this week, I can't look personally. If anyone is unfit and not ready to go, Ollie Wines is there to come in. He's been cleared of any major damage now, and he's ready to come back into the side. I do feel they'll go unchanged, but we know selection has been a big question mark over the last couple of weeks from Kenny and the selection panel. Butters looked a bit iffy last week, getting injured. He hurt I think it was a bruised sternum that he got. So if there's that option for Butters to come out, I do feel Motlop or Wines will come in. Motlop has been pretty good in the sample. Didn't play last week though, so they are a like for like, and I think that is the key thing now with selection. You've got to go like for like. So I don't care if Ollie Wines is fit and firing. If Butters goes out, you bring in someone that can play that role, not have an extra inside midfielder. That's just stupid and will stuff up our structures. But if there were someone to come out, unfortunately, I think it'd be Sutcliffe because they do play similar roles. But Sutcliffe's been playing more forward, so you just don't know. You don't know. Ollie Wines has the opportunity to come in, but there's no one really that he can drop. So I'd be going unchanged for this week. There's no real reason to make any changes unless it's a forced change. Prediction for this week's game, I'm tipping Port Adelaide. I think they'll get the job done at the Adelaide Oval. Should be a pretty... it's just a simple task, really. Win the game. And I think they'll do that by 14 points. So make sure you get to the ground, Port fans. Obviously, some people are not quite committed as many as others at the moment, considering where we are positioned on the ladder and some feelings toward the club. But just get to the ground, support the 22 that are playing on the weekend. We've still got a job to do. We've still got a massive opportunity to make the finals, and we can't do that without us being there supporting the boys. So make sure you get there 1:40 this Saturday at the Adelaide Oval, Port Adelaide versus Sydney. Thanks for watching this preview, Port fans. Let me know in the comments below what you're thinking about this weekend's game and who you're tipping. It's going to be a big game. Make sure you get down there, as I said before. And also make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are new for plenty more Port Adelaide content. We're only 40 odd away from 2,000 subscribers, which is absolutely insane. So thank you everyone for this continued support. It's really appreciated. And yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for watching, Port fans. My name is Anthony, and as always, can the pair.